Oh, why hello there, and welcome to Frank Reads. I'm Frank Hasenguler, and I've been reading some of my favorite stories lately, and I thought I'd share them with you. I enjoy them, and I hope you will too. Today we are reading a lay by Marie de France. A lay is a short narrative poem that was very popular in the Middle Ages. And Marie de France was a writer who lived in the mid to late 12th century. As her name suggests, she was from France. Beyond that, very little is known about her. The only autobiographical information we have was when she once wrote, "My name is Marie, and I am from France." Very helpful. Undoubtedly, she stayed with a court of either a lord or possibly even the English King Henry II. She wrote most of her work in England, and most of them deal with the very English King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. She would write them to amuse the lord or the king, and she is even credited with creating the entire literary genre of chivalrous romance. It was very popular in the Middle Ages, and it remains popular today. And today's story is named after one of Arthur's knights, who is also the main character. It is part 1 of Lanval. I shall tell you the adventure of another lay, just as it happened. It was composed about a very noble vassal. In Britain, they call him Lanval. Arthur, the brave and the courtly king, was staying at Cardwell because the Scots and the Picts were destroying the land. They invaded Le Gray and laid it waste. At Pentecost in summer, the king stayed there. He gave out many rich gifts to counts and barons, members of the Round Table. Such a company had no equal in all the world. He distributed wives and lands to all but one who had served him. That was Lanval. Arthur forgot him, and none of his men favored him either, for his valor, for his generosity, his beauty and his bravery. Most men envied him. Some feigned the appearance of love, who, if something unpleasant happened to him, would not have been at all disturbed. He was the son of a king of a high degree. But he was far from his heritage. He was of the king's household, but he had spent all his wealth, for the king gave him nothing, nor did Lanval ask. Now Lanval was in difficulty, depressed and very worried. My lords, don't be surprised. A strange man without friends is very sad in another land, when he doesn't know where to look for help. The knight of whom I speak, who had served the king so long, one day mounted his horse and went off to amuse himself. He left the city and came all alone to a field. He dismounted by a running stream, but his horse trembled badly. He removed the saddle and went off, leaving the horse to roll around in the meadow. He folded his cloak beneath his head and lay down. He worried about his difficulty. He could see nothing that pleased him. As he lay there, he looked down along the bank and saw 2 girls approaching. He had never seen any lovelier. They were richly dressed, tightly laced, in tunics of dark purple. Their faces were very lovely. The older one carried basins, golden, well-made, and fine. I shall tell you the truth about it, without fail. The other carried a towel. They went straight to where the knight was lying. Lanval, who was very well bred, got up to meet him. They greeted him first, and gave him their message. Sir Lanval, my lady, who is worthy and wise and beautiful, sent us for you. Come with us now. We shall guide you there safely. See, her pavilion is nearby. The knight went with them, giving no thought to his horse, who was feeding before him in the meadow. They led him up to the tent, which was quite beautiful and well placed. Queen Semiramis, however much more wealth, power, or knowledge she had, or the Emperor Octavian, could not have paid for one of the flaps. There was a golden eagle on top of it, whose value I could not tell, nor could I judge the value of the cords or the poles that held up the sides of the tent. There was no king on earth who could buy it, no matter what wealth he offered. The girl was inside the tent. The lily and the young rose, when they appear in the summer, are surpassed by her beauty. She lay on a beautiful bed. The bedclothes were worth a castle, dressed only in her shift. Her body was well shaped and elegant, for the heat she had thrown over herself. A precious cloak of white ermine, covered with purple alexandrine, but her whole side was uncovered, her face, her neck, and her bosom. She was whiter than the hawthorn flower. The knight went forward, and the girl addressed him. He sat before the bed. Lanval, she said, sweet love, because of you I have come from my land. I came to seek you from far away. If you are brave and courtly, no emperor or count or king will ever have known such joy or good. For I love you more than anything. He looked at her and saw that she was beautiful. Love stung him with a spark that burned and set fire to his heart. He answered her in a suitable way. Lovely one, he said, if it pleased you, if such joy might be mine, that you would love me, there is nothing you might command within my power that I would not do, whether foolish or wise. I shall obey your command. For you, I shall abandon everyone. I want never to leave you. That is what I most desire. When the girl heard the words of the man who could love her so, she granted him her love and her body. Now Lanval was on the right road. Afterward, she gave him a gift. He would never again want anything. He would receive as he desired. However generously he might give and spend, she would provide what he needed. Now Lanval is well cared for. The more lavishly he spends, the more gold and silver he will have. Love, she said, I admonish you now. I command and beg you, do not let any man know about this. I shall tell you why. You would lose me for good if this love were known. You would never see me again or possess my body. He answered that he would do exactly as she commanded. He lay beside her on the bed. Now Lanval is well cared for. He remained with her that afternoon until evening, and he would have stayed longer if he could, and if his love had consented. Love, she said, get up. You cannot stay any longer. Go away now. I shall remain, but I will tell you one thing. When you want to talk to me, there is no place you can think of where a man might have his mistress without reproach or shame, that I shall not be there with you to satisfy all your desires. No man but you will see me or hear my words. When he heard her, he was very happy. He kissed her, and then got up. The girls who had brought him to the tent dressed him in rich clothes. When he was dressed anew, there wasn't a more handsome youth in all the world. He was no fool, no boor. They gave him water for his hands, and a towel to dry them, and they brought him food. He took supper with his love. It was not to be refused. He was served with great courtesy. He received it with great joy. There was an entremet that vastly pleased the knight, for he kissed his lady often, and held her close. When they had finished dinner, his horse was brought to him. His horse had been well saddled. Lanval was richly served. The knight took his leave, mounted, and rode toward the city, often looking behind him. Lanval was greatly disturbed. He wondered about his adventure, and was doubtful in his heart. He was amazed, not knowing what to believe. He didn't expect ever to see her again. He came to his lodging, and found his men well dressed. That night, his accommodations were rich, but no one knew where it came from. There was no knight in the city who really needed a place to stay whom he didn't invite to join him, to be well and richly served. Lanval gave rich gifts. Lanval released prisoners. Lanval dressed jugglers. Lanval offered great honors. There was no stranger or friend to whom Lanval didn't give. Lanval's joy and pleasure were intense. In the daytime or at night, he could see his love often. She was completely at his command. In that same year, it seems to me, at the feast of St. John, about 30 knights were amusing themselves in an orchard beneath the tower where the queen was staying. Gawain was with them, and his cousin, the handsome Yvain. Gawain, the noble, the brave, who was so loved by all, said, "By God, my lords, we wronged our companion Lanval, who is so generous and courtly, and whose father is a rich king, when we didn't bring him with us." They immediately turned back, went to his lodging, and prevailed on Lanval to come along with them. At a sculpted window, the queen was looking out. She had 3 ladies with her. She saw the king's retinue, recognized Lanval, and looked at him. Then she told one of her ladies to send for her maidens, the loveliest and the most refined. Together they went to amuse themselves in the orchard where the others were. She brought 30 or more with her. They descended the steps. The knights came to meet them, because they were delighted to see them. The knights took them by the hand. Their conversation was in no way vulgar. Lanval went off to one side, far from the others. He was impatient to hold his love, to kiss and embrace and touch her. He thought little of others' joys, if he could not have his pleasure. When the queen saw him alone, she went straight to the knight. She sat beside him and spoke, revealing her whole heart. "Lanval, I have shown you much honor. I have cherished you and loved you. You may have all my love. Just tell me your desire. I promise you my affection. You should be very happy with me." "My lady," he said, "let me be. I have no desire to love you. I've served the king a long time. I don't want to betray my faith to him. Never, for you or for your love, will I do anything to harm my lord." The queen got angry. In her wrath, she insulted him. "Lanval," she said, "I am sure you don't care for such pleasure. People have often told me that you have no interest in women. You have fine-looking boys with whom you amuse yourself. Base coward, lousy cripple, my lord made a bad mistake when he let you stay with him. For all I know, he'll lose God because of it." When Lanval heard her, He was quite disturbed. He was not slow to answer. He said something out of spite that he would later regret. "Lady," he said, "of that activity I know nothing. But I am loved, and I am loved by one who should have the prize over all the women I know. And I shall tell you one thing, you might as well know all. Any one of those who serve her, the poorest girl of all, is better than you, my lady queen, in body, face, and beauty, in breeding, and in goodness." The queen left him and went weeping to her chamber. She was upset and angry because he had insulted her. She went to bed sick. Never, she said, would she get up unless the king gave her satisfaction for the offense against her. The king returned from the woods. He'd had a very good day. He entered the queen's chambers. When she went to him, she began to complain. She fell at his feet, asking his mercy, saying that Lanval had dishonored her. He had asked for her love, and because she refused him, he insulted and offended her. He boasted of a love who was so refined and noble and proud that her chambermaid, the poorest one who served her, was better than the queen. The king got very angry. He swore an oath. If Lanval could not defend himself in court, he would have him burned or hanged. The king left the chamber and called for 3 of his barons. He sent them for Lanval, who was feeling great sorrow and distress. He had come back to his dwelling, knowing very well that he'd lost his love. He had betrayed their affair. He was all alone in a room, disturbed and troubled. He called on his love again and again, but it did him no good. He complained and sighed. From time to time he fainted. Then he cried 100 times for her to have mercy and speak to her love. He cursed his heart and his mouth. It's a wonder he didn't kill himself. No matter how much he cried and shouted, ranted and raged, she would not have mercy on him. Not even let him see her. How will he ever contain himself? The men the king sent arrived and told him to appear in court without delay. The king had summoned him because the queen had accused him. Lanval went with great sorrow. They could have killed him for all he cared. And so ends part 1 of Lanval. Lanval's in a pretty bad place. He lost his love and he's in danger of losing his life. Will he be able to get out of his trouble? Will he ever see his love again? Let's find out next time when I read part 2 of Lanval. I hope you will join me. And until then, keep reading.